Rachel.
And I'm Kristen.
And we review books over here in our little corner of the internet.
And today we'll be reviewing Ophelia by Lisa Klein. Lisa Klein, right?
Yeah, I think
Klein.
that's it. The first half of our episodes are usually just general reviews and they won't have any spoilers, but then the second half will review some of our favorite and hated parts. So there'll be spoilers in that, but we'll give a warning before then.
If you want to follow along with us, our review and reading schedule will be linked in the description below.
Without further ado,
let's jump into it.
So if you guys saw our last episode, it was kind of just like a fun free-for-all episode. We mentioned towards the end that we were going to spend this first half of our the first month of our season doing like kind of an introductory vibe into like our youth books and like where we started and that got us here to the journey here, all sentimental and all
that. Yeah, mine's a little bit later. I would say I don't want to say in my fantasy realm, but it's more of like where I started dipping my toes more into the dark fairy tale type stuff, where I started seeing more of it.
Yeah, I kind of picked books that stuck with me that I read in high school because that's really when I started to read a lot. So Kristen picked 2 and I picked 2. The first one, Ophelia, that we're doing today is my pick, and it was one of the books that it just like still lingers, and I didn't really remember why because I have a horrible memory. But I know that I loved Ophelia. Like I wanted to name my first child, or my first daughter Ophelia. I want to name like cats Ophelia. Like I'm just like obsessed with her, and I didn't really remember why, just knowing that I loved this book. So that's kind of what got me on this idea, was just to be like, it would be fun to like revisit things that we loved and like would we still love them today in our adulthood. So I thought it would be kind of fun, and Kristen picked some really interesting books too, because I still even to this day don't really dabble in like retelling of fairy tales, so it's an interesting thing because I like the idea, it sounds really cool.
And I'm definitely a fairy tale retelling type of person. I like it on a different viewpoint, or a darker version, or just like a different way of looking at things, because like a lot of the fairy tales that that are out there for like Grimm or Disney, they either do it lighthearted or too grim. I wanted something either in between or just something like different. Especially more in the fantasy areas. Like a lot of the darker versions of retelling are usually have to deal with fantasy or magic, and I always liked that. I'm definitely a fantasy person, so anything that puts a little bit of magic in there, I'm like, ooh, I want to read that.
And I like how they're not super magical. Like they're very subtle. Mine doesn't have any magic in it. But and I don't even think the second one that I picked has magic in it either, because that came later for me, I think, because a lot of times, in my opinion, when I was reading these books, fantasy was really dry at the time, and there wasn't a lot that I was interested in. So it never pulled my attention quite like the romances did, which was all I was reading throughout high school.
But I definitely was not reading romance at the time. If it did, it was like more of a subplot, or it was closed door, to where it wasn't the big thing. It was just like, the girl might be interested in, but she's got other shit to do. That's usually where my fantasy went into, or my romance.
I read a lot too of Fear Street books, which is the same author who does Goosebumps, but I never liked Goosebumps. But for some reason, it's that like they were almost, because there was like a lot of kissing and making out, and it was like high schoolers that were doing this, so it was almost raunchy. That must be where like the beginnings of my smut reading happened, because that's where I started, and I love those books because they felt so much older, and they were really good. I almost picked one for this, but I kind of wanted to stick with the ones that I know are more with me. Like if you told me name a fucking Fear Street book, I would just know.
I wouldn't either. But I did like Fear Street. I did like Goosebumps when I was younger too. Yeah,
they're good. And I read the Twilight series. I was obsessed with those, even though they're horrible. Like even when I think as I read them around like 16 or 17, and I'm totally gonna age myself here. But that's when I was reading them, and they were bad. And I knew while I was reading them that they were bad, but they were like a guilty pleasure. 100%.
Yeah, I never read them. In fact, a long story short, I was with somebody at the time. I was with somebody, dating somebody, and went to the bookstore trying to find some really good books. And I wanted to go into a fantasy. I was, my dark fantasy still was around, and I was trying to find something. And the guy at the counter recommended Twilight. because it was brand new at the time. I was like, I don't know if I ever want to read it, but the guy I was dating was heavily into vampire stuff, and he's like, I'll read it. So now when I think back at it all the time, I'm just like, that's hilarious thinking that he read that book.
Did he like it?
No, he
okay,
hated it.
good. See, that's acceptable, and that's a funny book to recommend to like a grown ass adult,
Yeah,
a male first of all.
Yeah.
Say, oh, it's a vampire book.
Yeah.
I will say though, that's the one thing that I do like about those. I thought that the lore was really good, like the idea of like these vampires, because I am also really into vampires. So I loved the lore of it, but the books are horrible. Like the main character is horrible. Like I get it, but it was a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, because of that, I was like, "You're not gonna like it. Don't read it." And so I didn't. And then when all the movies started coming, I was like, "Oh my god, he read that!"
That's so
laughing so hard.
They're bad. I went to all those premieres too. Like I was there. I was in it. I was knee deep in it. I went to Forks. Like I dressed up. Like I was in the thick of it. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. That's a whole other story. But this particular book I picked because I was pretty into Shakespeare at the time. I mean, this is the time when I'm reading the plays and I like it. Now, I will say I'm not like a fucking Shakespeare aficionado. I'm not a Shakespeare scholar. So a lot of when I was reading sort of the critiques for this book, a lot of people had problems with it not being authentic to the play. So right up front, there you go. But
well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I hate Shakespeare. I hate Shakespeare everything. Can't fucking stand it because it doesn't. It gives me Shakespeare vibes, but it wasn't like too much for me that it didn't make me hate this book.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just throw it out there lightly. But yeah, I absolutely hate Shakespeare. I can't stand Romeo and Juliet. I hate the characters. I hate the storyline. And I'll get more into it when we talk about this book because it does have a lot of Shakespeare. Obviously, if it's based off Shakespeare, it's gonna have a lot of Shakespeare stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll talk about it more when we talk about the book.
Yeah, I love it, and that's a big reason why I picked it. That's a good reason. That's a huge reason why I loved it. But anyway, so we could just jump right into the summary of it. The summary is a retelling of Shakespeare's Hamlet, but it's through Ophelia's eyes. If you're familiar with the Hamlet play, Ophelia doesn't play like a super huge part in it, but she is sort of like this potential love interest for Hamlet at the time before he like goes mad and kills everybody, and then everybody dies.
Yeah.
So it's sort of her POV through this, and we meet her sort of living in this castle with this deadbeat dad and her shitty brother, and then she's sort of navigating kind of growing up into womanhood and then having to have a position within, it's not really in the court, but she's like a handmaid to the queen.
Yeah.
And her sort of navigating that, and obviously there's a romance that develops between her and Hamlet. Hamlet goes crazy, and then she has to make some decisions whether she's going to be a part of his madness or whether she's going to get away from his madness, and that's pretty much the story. It's not really deep and it's not really long.
No.
It's just sort of a quick telling, I would say. But do you have anything to add to the summary?
No, definitely it's heavily Shakespeare. You know, it's not bad. So if you're really into Shakespeare, like Crystal said, I don't know if you would be excited to read this because it's in between heavily Shakespeare and then what a retelling would be.
Yeah, and then understand too that it does take liberties. Like it's not following Hamlet's story to the T. This is a spin-off of it, a different idea about it.
Yeah, it's like another person's telling of a story. Like when you listen to two people talk about the same event, they're going to put their POV on it. So I mean, just think of it as a different POV.
Yep. So all of that being said, we could just jump right into our reviews. Kristen, I'm dying to know.
I know. So I gave it a 3 out of 5, and without spoilers. The reason why is because I am not a Shakespeare person, but I didn't want to take away from the story just because it was Shakespeare. So I didn't want to put that bias on it. That being said, reading it is like reading like a period piece. You know, a time period piece, and that's fine. I didn't have any problems when I took away this is Shakespeare, and I immediately just put in my head that this is a period piece. I was deep diving into it myself. I was like getting into it. I was just like, oh, I like this story. I love the storyline. It was really great off of her POV. And I'm not a Shakespeare fan. So like, I don't give a shit if it doesn't follow Shakespeare. In fact, I prefer that it doesn't. So I think that's why I enjoyed it a lot. But it is not my type of read. So like it doesn't have magic. Of course, it doesn't have any of that stuff. I wish it did. Sometimes I wish it did. But it was good for you know being the story. I enjoyed it. I don't think I would read it again, only because I did struggle reading because it is a dry.
Mm-hmm.
It's dry. No matter how you wanna, you could say it's a great book, and it is, but there has the moments where I'm just like I'm struggling to get through the book when it comes to just how it's worded, and it is something that you can't just like read when you're tired.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that I like to read books when I'm tired, but like there's that right before you go to sleep, I like to read, and if I'm not closing my eyes, I still want to continue to read, and I can't do that. I'll end up having to reread it. So I found myself doing that quite a bit. But some of the characters did annoy me in the beginning, only because I felt like they were over dramatic characters, and it's Shakespeare. So even when I wanted to take that away from it, be like, don't think about it as Shakespeare. It has a lot of things where it does remind me this is Shakespeare, and so like it is over dramatic. The characters are going to be over dramatic, but it did start to tone it down a bit.
Mm-hmm.
The over dramatic parts and they are young, so I had to keep saying that to myself. They're young and shit's happening, but they're very over dramatic and melodramatic. So that did annoy me because I don't really like that type of character vibe. But I started to get into it when things were going down.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say closer to, because I think it's in 3 parts.
Mm-hmm.
I would say more towards the middle of the second part. I was just like, okay, this is kind of funny now that they're being over dramatic. But it wasn't too bad. There is a lot of religious undertones towards the third part of the book, which obviously is necessary for the telling of the story. Where she falls and and areas and locations that she ends up at. Of course, it's going to be a little religious. So, and I don't tend to like a lot of religious storytelling, but it didn't feel bad that it ended up having a lot of religious undertones to it. I didn't feel like it ruined the story. I feel like it made sense for the story.
Yeah, and it's such a part of that time. That like you said, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I felt like all that made the story more believable and more just. It's not supposed to be a fantasy book, so it made it fit very well into everything that I was reading. So I enjoyed it. There was a lot of little twists here and there, and those were kind of funny to me. I don't know if they were supposed to be funny, but I found the twists hilarious. We'll get more into that later, but they were good. It was a good book. I did enjoy it.
Yeah. I originally had this on my Goodreads as a 5. But that's right when I started my Goodreads, which was probably like right after high school. So I was trying to remember all the books I read, and just obviously pulled out my favorites, gave them a 5. Rereading it, I think a more fair rating would be 3.5. I want to give it a 4, but it's just not like quite there.
Yeah.
I think 3 is a little too low in my opinion for like how I feel about the book. So I'm gonna settle with a solid 3.5. I love this book, just overall generally. I love Ophelia. I like to see that my taste in women have not changed all that much because Ophelia sort of represents everything that I love in a female main character. She's like besting men that are supposed to be smarter than her. She's going toe to toe with the prince, like on thoughts of philosophy and things like that. And like having these two people who are supposed to be outranking her, sort of admiring how smart she is and how witty she is, and like I love that. And so clearly that's why I'm so obsessed with her, and that's why I was so obsessed with her when I was younger. So I really like those aspects. I also love the writing. Like, I love the way they're talking because it's very reminiscent of Shakespeare without being totally Shakespeare. It just sounds so poetic and so flowery and so pretty, and I love it so much. Like, he the way he would, like, say things to her that are generally romantic, I'm, like, swooning. I'm, like, kicking my feet, like, feeling 16 all over again. So I loved it all. Also, the book is written as Ophelia sort of writing her own, as if she's writing it to somebody. So this is Ophelia telling her own story. So there's not a whole lot of like flowery narration, and it is from like her POV, and she'll just sort of move through events quickly because she's almost like, and it gave me vibes of Hermione, if like Hermione had written her story down of like the role that she played in whatever, the history of Denmark. That's what it gave me. Even though obviously she didn't do anything quite as like grandiose as Hermione did in Manacled, I still got those vibes from it, and I like it a lot. Another thing, so she does take a detour towards the end of the book to another place, and I like that the detour and the people that she meets there and the experiences that she have there really mirror a lot of what happened to her at court. And there's like 2 people she's trying to save, and she loses both of them, and I kind of like that, the sort of thing that she like the reality of like not everything's pretty and perfect, and that's kind of how the book ends too. It's like she goes through all of these events, and still at the end, like she loses. I mean, I don't really think it's that much of a spoiler. She loses Hamlet because obviously that's Hamlet.
Yeah.
So she loses him. She loses this other person, and she's just sort of like living life then at that point as of like survivor in this other area. So I kind of like this sort of bittersweet ending at the end.
Yeah, I did like more of the last part of the book. That last part of the book was really good.
I have a love-hate relationship because I think it's really boring there at sometimes. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here?
It is.
But like, it's still interesting in a different way. It's nice to see this different part of her, and the fact that it didn't end beautifully with like a perfect little bow at the end to make.
I feel like it did. I feel like it did, but it didn't. I agree with you. It's not the perfect little fucking storyline that most people are expecting, but I feel like she still got a happy ending.
She did, and I like that we leave a lingering of like, there's no solid like she rides off into the sunset with her prince. It's subtle, and it's like
a new beginning.
It is a new beginning, and I like the.
I got butterflies from that ending. I was like,
and
I can't do it now. I can't do it now.
And I like that it's not that it's subtle. Yeah. It's not like in your face. Like the author told me what happened. Yeah. It's like the story's yours to just sort of let unfold. Yeah. And I like it. I like it so much. So yeah, 3.5 for me. Of course, I like to put the Goodreads readings in here. They gave a 3.75, which is pretty good for what we did, or like pretty in sync with us. That's out of 12,000 ratings, so it was really hard to find short Goodreads reviews. Let me just say, people went off. They were like dissecting
because it's Shakespeare.
I was like, come on, guys.
Yeah, they take Shakespeare a little bit too much. I mean, I get it, but like I don't.
Yeah,
like, who cares?
It's not that serious,
guys.
Yeah,
Shakespeare isn't all that great. I don't care what anyone says. I hate it. So like, sure, you can love it, but I absolutely hate it.
So I'm just going to read the second half of Chelsea's because I think she just quoted something at the top. So Chelsea says, great, I love a historical fiction. I love Shakespeare. I did not, however, love this retelling. Ophelia started off strong, but the last 100 pages seemed irrelevant and unnecessary. I can understand what the author was going for, but quite frankly, I personally found it to be quite dull. The pace slowed way down. The part that took place in the nunnery was excruciating to wade through. I feel bad because the book had so much potential.
I like the ending better than I liked the beginning.
I do agree that the ending, like her time in the nunnery, which I guess we could
it's a little bit slow.
It's slow and it is boring at times.
Yeah, but I feel like that's the whole book, though. Honestly, I feel like the whole book is like up down, up down, up down, up down, and it's a little bit more down towards the end. But I feel like she needed that.
I do agree that it kept the same pacing, even though, like this person said, it felt like it slowed down. I do agree that it went up and down the entire time.
Yeah, I don't feel like it was. I mean,
Abby says trashed, terrible writing. The plot moved so fast, and the connection between the characters was absent. There was no build up. The idea is there. I saw the movie and it was really well done, but the actual book was terrible. And then Katie, I'm pulling you all the way up from 2010.
Yeah.
She says, okay, I get that this is based on Shakespeare's story of Hamlet. The story is a tragedy, but I felt like this went beyond tragedy. From page one, it was one depressing thing after another. Even the romance aspect wasn't happy or interesting. To be honest, I didn't even finish it, and I don't do that often.
Well, I mean, then she doesn't understand Shakespeare, one.
Yeah.
Because,
that's the book.
That's
the tragedy.
You're reading a Shakespeare tragedy. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
she obviously doesn't like Shakespeare, which I get. Mm-hmm. But then don't read this.
Yeah, and then just say that. I'm not into the tragedy, and that's fine.
And I mean, I get it. I totally agree. But this is still a good book. I mean, maybe because I don't like Shakespeare.
But I'm still, even not liking Shakespeare, I mean, the 3 is a pretty decent.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I mean, I've been reading some shitty books lately, and this is actually not that bad.
And also, to be fair, I wholeheartedly disagree that there wasn't a romantic build-up because I love Hamlet. All the shit he was saying to her, I was like, I love you.
Me, on the other hand, believe that the romance came from somebody else.
Yes.
But, I mean, we'll talk about that.
That's debatable,
yeah,
but yes. Yeah. Still, I thought there was a great build-up, so I'm here for it. And then a tragic downfall of that great build-up as well.
Yeah.
So anyways, there you have it. There's the disagreeables. But now, our favorite part, we can jump into the spoilers. Okay, Kristen, I'm dying to know what your favorite parts are.
Okay, so I got a few, I'm trying to remember. But the one of the first ones I put in here is Horatio helping Ophelia through her fake death. I really did like that. This guy, I loved him. Okay.
Yeah.
I loved him from the beginning.
When he drops the flower, when Hamlet and he's like, "Don't worry." Like,
yeah, I loved him. I was
Yeah.
like, she needs to be with him. And then everybody else around her was even telling her that, like, why don't you see this? And she's like, no. I'm like, bitch, I fucking see it.
So give me the king. I don't want the fucking side piece.
I mean, I get it, but like, this guy is swooning. He's swooning hard. So, but I love that he like did everything to help her through her fake death, and like it was a lot.
Yeah,
it was a lot. Like her brother and her husband are fighting over her lifeless body, and like he's got to keep her secret that she's dead because she wants nothing to do with the king anymore, or her brother. Like it was insane. Her fucking funeral.
And then he like saw her like fall into the water.
And he helps her out of the water. He's doing all this shit for somebody who's a friend of like, or her husband or her best friend's wife. Like, no, obviously you have a thing for her. Like he went hard. And then there was a part where Ophelia was, she was just really determined to leave Hamlet. Like, she didn't give a fuck about his revenge bullshit anymore. I love how she was able to be like, I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna do me. Fuck your bullshit. I'm done. Like, you're not putting me first. We married each other. You were supposed to be my husband. You're supposed to be there for me. And especially at a time where women depend on men heavily.
Yep.
Like, she was just like, no, you're not gonna be there for me. And she could have been queen. But, like, he keeps on saying, keep it quiet.
Yes.
Just wait. And then she's like, no, I'm done. I'll keep your secret. I'll keep it quiet, but I'm done. And so, he even told her, go to the nunnery, or the convent, or whatever he said to her. And so, like, she was distraught. Like, she ended up doing what he said. Like, she's like, fuck you. I'm doing what I want to do.
On her own terms.
On her own terms. She made her own way, and everybody was like, even Horatio was like, no, stay with me. Stay with me. I'll help you. Let me just make sure you get there. And she's like, no, I'm going to do this me. And she dressed up like as a man to get everywhere. Like, I loved her for all of that. While she's like stumbling around, pretending to be drunk, doing all this shit to be a man. I was like, I fucking loved it. Of course, Ophelia finding her way in the nunnery was great. I loved that she even kept her same like gumption and strength and resilience while she was even in the nunnery. She was trying to keep her secret that she was pregnant, and while was finding her place just being the potions mistress or the healer. So I love that she became the healer. Love that.
Yep.
And Horatio at the ending, where Horatio and Ophelia get back, like they reunite. Oh my god, I love it. I've been waiting for it the whole book.
I know.
The whole book. And so, like, when he's the nun, like, what's her name? I don't remember one of the nuns that was, like, her best friend.
Oh, Isabel?
I think so.
Like that? Yeah.
Yeah, she's just, like, hiding in, like, the woods area. And Ophelia's like, what the fuck is that? Because she's still a little worried that people are out to get her. And then there's Horatio.
Just standing cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah.
And then little Hamlet runs out.
Yeah.
And he bows to him.
Was right before, though, like, when he's, like, he kisses her. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. He thought she was a fucking nun.
I like that he did it anyways. He's like, he's like thinking that she's a nun. He still can't resist himself, and then freaks out.
And then she's like, oh, no, I'm not a nun.
No.
I'm just here to heal them. And so, like, he's like, well, can I do it again? Oh my god, I love you.
Yeah, I loved him.
Yeah,
too.
I love him a lot. But yeah,
and then like that standing.
Yeah,
like boom.
Yeah, I was happy with that.
Yeah, me too.
I was completely content
with the suggestion that they probably stay together. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
But yeah, those are my favorite best parts of the book.
Those are some great best parts. One of my best parts is I love Ophelia's like untamable nature just in general, and there's a part where Hamlet has like left for a while, and then he comes back, and now Ophelia has grown and is his mom's handmaid, and he says to her like, I think this is their first time seeing each other, and he's like, the wild doe has become the great deer. And she says, indeed, my lord, this collar and chain do hold me fast. I fear I have been forcibly tamed. And I just like love this idea that she's like put in these fucking positions that she doesn't want to be in. She's like, yeah, I'm fucking tied and tethered here.
Yeah.
And I've been forcibly tamed against my will to be like a proper fucking girl. Because before this, she's very like tomboy. Like she's fighting with her brother. Yeah. She's like jumping in the river. Like she's doing all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, half naked and shit.
Yeah. And that's when they first meet each other. I love that part too, because because she's running away from this dude who won't stop like trying to essay her.
Yeah, fuck that dude.
And she's in the river, and he's like, I just love the way they talk. What beast are you running from, or some shit like that?
yeah, I forgot about that part. That's so funny.
And she's like saying like I'm not trying to be around him, because I said like, why are you with him then? Or she's like, I'm not. He's accosting me. Yeah. And he tells her like, well, you should have a dagger because I can't always be near to save you. And I'm just like, I love this. I love them both. Another one is, I do love when they get secretly married. I'm not gonna lie. I think this like secret underground romance is so cute and so sweet. It's just when he keeps denying it, when shit starts hitting the fan, then it's like, you're really ruining the romanticism of what's going on here. Because I love when he does it. It's such like she's freaking out that
because they already had sex and everything.
Yeah, like that she's not like a harlot, and her dad's gonna throw her to the wall, or he's gonna throw her to his dad, and they're gonna tear her apart. He's like, no, like, I love you. Like, I'm not joking. Let's get married right now, and then you won't have to ever worry about that. So like that whole scene was really nice. Also, she makes a note about like the priest or who's ever marrying them is like super excited, as if like this is his fantasy to secretly marry people, which I just thought was really funny. There's another part too after they get married that Hamlet is now starting to work up to his revenge, and he's trying to direct a play, which is so fucking stupid that he even did this.
I know, I hate that part.
He's trying to direct a play though, and one of the actors is like moving his sword too much. And Hamlet's like, stop moving your sword. He's like, my sword is just trying to find its mark. And Hamlet walks up there and like breaks the sword in half and throws it. Like, I don't know why that's hilarious to me, but it is. The Queen and Ophelia reading smut together.
Yeah, that's
is hilarious.
Yeah.
Sneaking away, and that's where she learns like a lot of her ideas of like love and like being chaste and whether or not that's like needed or whatever. There is a scene, I'm gonna touch on what you said, when she turns into like a mad woman. There's a scene where she has decided that she's gonna kill herself, and so she's a mad woman, but she collects all of these flowers and stuff, and she goes up to the king and the queen and like puts certain flowers on them, and in her mind she's explaining why she chose each of those flowers. Like, this is a symbol, essentially calling them out and judging them on their crimes, but pretending it's just like, here's just a pretty flower, and here's just like, I love that little call out. And then finally, one of my last favorite ones is just her overall like defiant attitude. And this shows up in like two places that is my favorite, is when she ends up attending church service for Eleanor because she just wants to like appease her. And she's reading all of these books, and she's like upset at how all these books are trying to tell her that she needs to be tame and meek and modest. And she's like, this reads like somebody who like has no knowledge of women and doesn't even like women. And just kind of sounds like a lot of rhetoric today when we're talking about these guys that are like hating on women for stuff. It's like, the joke is like, do you even like women?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Feels like you don't.
Yeah.
And there's another scene too when she's arguing with Marguerite about like Marguerite's looking down on this other nun that used to be there, but who fell to her promiscuity and her like pleasure temptations. And Ophelia gets all mad. She's like, well, what of the man?
Yeah.
What of all these men that are forcing themselves on us and nobody passes judgment on them, but it's always the fucking woman who gets cast for that. Like, I love these subtle, like, little feminist arcs of her just, like, being upset. And I also really like it, just to sort of touch on it, what you said about her being in the nunnery and that kind of being a cool thing, but there was religious undertones. I like that, and I don't want to be disrespectful to any sort of religion or anything, but just saying, I really like that she's put in this position to be here, and there is a moment that she is willing to, like, bow down and sort of say, like, just let me be a nun, and the nun even tells her, like, no, this isn't really a place for you. Yeah. And when she steps back, she sort of understands that, like, she can respect religion and she can sort of see like things that she can explain, but at the end of the day she's so based on like logic and reason and science that she never falls into being 100% a nun. Like, she finds her place, which is just to be their healer, but never sort of falls 100% into the dogma, and I just like respect that, because like the religion is there, but it doesn't ever feel like
it's too much. It's
shoved down her throat or it's shoved down our throat. It's just like it is, and she chose a different path, and they respect that, and so I loved that so much.
Yeah, I love that the mother, I don't say the mother nun, but they call her mother.
Yeah.
But yeah, she knows that. Yeah, I'm not just going to force another person in here because of circumstance. Mm-hmm. Like, you could stay here. I'll let you, you can help out, find your place, but no, you do not need to be a nun. You're not a nun.
Yeah, just out of sheer desperation, because you're so desperate.
Yeah, and she recognized that. And so I loved that she didn't force another religion or religion on another person just because of their circumstance. Mm-hmm. That's a person who understands, like, you could still be one of God's children and not have to be devoted as much as the mother nun,
Mm-hmm.
the mother hen.
Also, I'll do one more since we're on this topic.
Okay.
Her dying, or that girl dying,
Oh yeah.
was such a great contrast to like Hamlet dying and Ophelia being a healer. Her inability to save both of these people, I think, was such a good sort of like lesson on just like reality of life. Like no matter what you do, and like her overall arch was like it doesn't really matter what you do or what you say to somebody, even if you love them, like the decisions that they make are the decisions that they make, and they're going to like there's nothing you could do about it. They were both set on their own paths of self-destruction. Literally both of them were self-destructing.
Yeah.
And so
It wasn't that she needed to heal them physically because of some kind of illness of of the body. It was an illness of the mind. They both went mad, and they were going down and down and down, and she was just recognizing it. But I love how she stepped away from Hamlet, and she didn't want to step away from the nun, and it was almost like she was trying to do something about the nun because she couldn't do something about Hamlet. So I feel like she, like you said, she learned by helping the nun that there was nothing she could have done for Hamlet.
So she kind of got to close that chapter.
Both chapters,
she didn't have to both chapters and have to understand that it is a sickness of the mind from both of them, and I am ineffectual at that as anybody would be. Yeah, so I thought it was great. Such a great like AP English sort of analysis of the book. It's
I'd like to throw in there too that because at the end with the nun, she died. They believe that she died a saint because of her palms, like having the blood of Christ or whatever. And to me, that's like people are gonna believe whatever they want to believe at what people's madness is. Mm-hmm. So with Hamlet, they did not want to believe that that he was going after the king or that he wasn't going after the king. Different people believe different things about Hamlet, and the same thing with the nun. Different people believe different things about how she passed and why she passed. They now believe that it was because of some kind of God interference, and then with Hamlet, they believe that he was madly in love with either Ophelia, and that's what drove him mad, or he was mad because of his revenge, because of his father. So, like, it was like you got both of those, tug of war with the beliefs and why people either helped them or didn't help them, and Ophelia was stuck listening to both of it.
Yeah, she dragged into everybody's shit.
Yeah.
And I like that scene, too, because everybody obviously attributes it to like a godly thing, and Ophelia doesn't take a position, and I like that. She's just like, yeah, that's weird, and I tried to think about all of the ways that it could have happened, and I couldn't, but I'm just gonna leave it there. Like I'm not gonna say it was holy, but I'm also not gonna say it wasn't. And that's sort of her position the entire time she's in the nunnery. And I like that she keeps true to herself, which is an intelligent, well thought out person who's based in reason. Like I love this.
Yeah. And like this book, she's really young. She starts off really young. I think she was like 16 when she married Hamlet. Mm-hmm. And then so she's becoming more and more mature as the book goes on, and that's why I believe that it went from over dramatic to like a lot of people say boring and tame towards the end, because she's getting older. She's starting to realize I don't need to always be in this business
and all this drama.
Yeah.
Shit, I got a baby of my own. Like,
exactly.
I don't need this shit.
And so people are like, well, I want it to be more and more. It's like, do you, as a 16-year-old wanting to mature, want to continue that fucking crazy ass path of life? No, you want it to die down. And that's why if the story kept going at a high pace where everybody in these comments were saying that they wanted that, like, then the book would never end.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah, I'm glad that it started to die down when she got more mature because she had a kid. Mm-hmm. The prince.
And your fucking priorities change drastically.
Yeah,
when you're pregnant, when you have a kid coming, like, you don't want to
live that lifestyle.
No, and it's bad enough that she still kind of has to look over her shoulder.
Yeah. So it makes sense to me that it does start to die down, and in my opinion, I enjoyed that it did. So
I also enjoy, like, I want her position. Can I just live in the woods, just tending to an herb garden and healing people? That'd be fucking fantastic.
Yeah, with a bunch of women who are probably just like, when you start to get to know them, they were all pretty cool with her. So it's like, I thought it was great.
Yeah, essentially, she turned into that like lady in the woods.
Yes,
she was going
I was about to say because I loved her character, Metchel.
Yeah.
She turned just into her. It's like but she loved her.
Yeah,
so she like thought her as a role model, and so in my opinion, she turned exactly into her. But a lot more. I don't know. I want to say love in her life, but because I don't know if the other person did or didn't.
Yeah, and she was older, so maybe
you couldn't really tell.
Yeah, you couldn't tell. But yeah, overall, great. Do you have any hated parts?
The only part I hated was Hamlet and Ophelia pretending to not love each other but love each other.
Yeah.
And then it was that back and forth. It was just like, I hate that. I hated that so much. Like you said, right after they got married, then he was just like, oh no, hide it, hide it, hide it. And then she was like, well, let's come up with a plan and make your madness look like you're just madly in love with me and I'm like casting you aside. And then when it does happen, she gets upset, but I don't know if he's really casting her aside. It's like, I fucking hate this. They're causing drama for no reason because at the end, he was so into his revenge that they couldn't see anything but his revenge.
Yep.
So I hated that. I felt like it was unnecessary and it ended up making things worse for all of them. So.
And I also agree, it's a fucking annoying and it's totally a 16-year-old mind to do, but Hamlet is supposed to be like 20 or something.
Yeah.
He needs to get his shit together because that was such a juvenile thing to do.
It was. It's for him to agree, but I think he did it in part to allow the secrecy to continue because I think he did not want it to come out. Even though he did love her, he still did not want everybody to know about his bullshit, so he just went along with it. Whatever. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It all did was backfire, so. Yeah. It made me mad. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it was cringy.
Don't deny my love for you. Like, I could see why she left.
Yeah. I didn't have any, like, specific parts that I hated, but I could not stand the queen. Like, everything to do with this fucking queen was pissing me off.
Yeah.
And also it pissed me off, which I know why she didn't say it, but I wish she would have told the fucking queen that she had his baby.
Yeah, and like she ended up even saying herself, I wish you were my daughter. I wish you did marry. Why didn't you just tell her?
I would have told her, like, oh, by the way.
We are, and I'm having his kid. But I think she was scared that, like, her life was on the line, so.
Yeah.
But still, just tell her something.
Yeah. And the queen, like when her dad dies and then they all just, like, ostracize her. Like, I hated that. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
I hated that part, too. Like, I didn't understand any of that.
And it was so easy to just fall in and out of the queen's grace. Like, then it felt inauthentic when she did like you.
Her. Yeah, and the reason why her dad died was because of them. Yeah. So, like, yeah, I was just done with all that.
I hated all that.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, I really hated the overdramatic bullshit that everybody put themselves into. I was so mad with it. I mean, I get the story, though.
I'm glad, though, that she didn't wallow in it. She's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I appreciated her for that.
Yeah. Do you have any hated characters?
I do have some hated characters. I hate Edmund, the guy that fucking sexually assaults her in the water and follows her around and starts to do all crazy shit. And yeah, I fucking hate him. I don't even know what his problem is. Like,
I know, dude, and like her whole life too.
Yeah, like what is wrong with you? You fuck, like leave her alone. Oh my god. Yeah, she's just so. Like I would end up fucking killing that dude. Yeah. Everybody dies. I don't know if he dies. I'm assuming he dies.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, me too. But I do have some loved characters.
Oh, who's your loved?
Horatio.
Yeah.
I fucking love him, and I love the lady in the woods. Cause she's just awesome.
Yeah.
She, like I said, Ophelia mimics her. And I really, really, really love Isabel, the nun. Like, she was like the first one to like be friends with her and like, so she gets a letter from Horatio, Ophelia. She gets a letter from Horatio, and Isabel sees this letter, hides the letter. Then she reads it too. After she's reading it, she's like, "Oh shit, I don't want Ophelia to hurt herself." She takes her knife and hides the dagger, and then like did she burn the letter? I think she burned the letter. I can't remember.
No, I think she keeps it because she uses that letter at the
end. Okay, so like she hides the letter, she buries the dagger, and she like keeps Ophelia's secret for the longest.
And this is
time.
Before they're even friends.
Yeah,
like, this girl was like ready to go to bat for her.
Yeah, yeah. And so she was great, but I loved her. I was like, a girl who's gonna like be your backbone when you need it, because like Ophelia was like, she was in bed, she was crying because like she found out Hamlet died.
Yeah.
So like this girl was like there for her no matter what.
Yeah.
Didn't even second guess anything. It was just like, I'm here for you.
And like she's supposed to be like a nun, you know? Like I wouldn't expect this behavior, like hiding and lying and like burying shit.
Yeah,
like
she's a fucking nun. I love her.
Yeah,
I love it. She's a great character.
Yeah.
Well, did. Do you have any love hated? Besides the queen you hate?
Yeah, I hate the queen. I hate her dad. I hate her brother.
Oh yeah, fuck all them.
Like, they're so horrible. Of course, I love Horatio too. I did love Hamlet up until he went crazy. It's hard though because I also understand him. Like, if your ghost of your dad came back and was like, "Yo, my brother killed me," and then he got your mom, because now I know that he hated that the mom was like married, but like nobody really interviewed mom. Nobody
Yeah.
asked why mom was marrying
No.
the brother right off the bat. And then we come to find out later she's scared, and that's why, like, she confessed to Ophelia before Ophelia ran. Yeah, she's scared for her life. So it's like, okay, so I can understand Hamlet's, like, determination to want to kill this dude. So, like,
Yeah.
I totally got it. I can't hate him so much for it. I really just hate him for, like...
It was just the way he did it. It was just insane.
Yeah.
Like, he was crazy. He was, like, straight crazy.
Mm-hmm. But, like, trying to position him... It was like he was arguing with himself consistently.
Yeah.
Am I
He
crazy?
didn't want to do it.
Am I not? Is this
Yeah.
moral? Is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you do it. You want revenge so bad. It was insane.
And it's not like, okay, I think those are all natural feelings to be having. This is all fine. The problem is that you waited so long. Like, fucking kill the dude. What is this play that we're doing? We did this whole play to let your uncle know that you're onto him and you're gonna kill him. It's
That
like,
made no fucking sense.
just fucking kill him. I would have been by his side as Ophelia had he just acted. This, like, messing around in the background
and that's what she said.
waiting
She even
time.
said that.
Yeah. It was really the problem. So I have a love-hate relationship with Hamlet.
Yeah. She also wasn't too fond of him wanting to kill somebody based off of revenge anyways, because she felt like it was going to spoil them as a whole. And she was right. Because, like, it wasn't like, I'm good. He wasn't trying to kill his now new stepdad uncle for, like, safety reasons. It was because it was a revenge. It was selfish. It was, like, if it was for defense of his family, yeah, definitely she would have stayed.
Yeah. But then even she even starts to come over to his side when she finds the poison bottle.
Yeah.
Because she's like, well, absolutely, then it did happen. Now I have proof. So, like, she's more inclined. But then he was gone, so that kind of ruined everything.
Yeah.
But
because he was sent away by his uncle. Well, that was trying to kill him. So.
Yeah. So, all around, I think I like Hamlet as a character because he was a complex character who was just doing crazy shit. And, of course, I love Ophelia. She's my girl. But, yeah, I think that's a good wrap-up. Oh, I will say, I think it'd be fun to decide at the end, would we recommend this book based off our rating now? And I think that I still would. Like, based off the rating now, I would say I would want my daughter to read this book because I like Ophelia. I think she's a good role model.
I definitely would recommend it if somebody was in this type of genre read. I'd be like, oh, yeah, read this one. It's definitely a good read. I don't know if I would recommend it to my friends that read more fantasy, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. But, like, if it was, like, a good Shakespeare read, like, when my daughter gets older, too, I'd be like, hey, you should read this.
Yeah. I think those are one of the staples. I'll be like, you're going to read this one? You're going to read this one? And to be fair, though, like, if you're watching us now as sort of an adult reader, this is not probably going to be in your wheelhouse. This is truly a young adult. And it feels young adult the whole way through because of how they're acting the entire time. I mean, she's retelling her what her crazy 16-year-old self was doing, so it makes absolute sense.
It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, so yeah, I still stick by it, even though I went from a 5 to a 3.5. I still think it's a good book. But anyways, yeah, so that's our episode for this one. Next week, we're doing Kristen's pick.
Oh, yeah. I got some weird picks, I tell you.
With, Entwined.
Yes.
I'm excited for that one. We have Entwined by XX, so I don't really remember.
I think her last name's Dixon.
Okay.
Something
by Miss Dixon.
Yeah, I forget. I will remember in the next episode, so
we'll
just watch this next episode.
Yep.
We're here at Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Central Time. I'm like, are we? What time do we?
Correct.
Yeah, that time.
All right, guys. Well, you can follow us on all the socials too. We're on Instagram, Amazon Music, Spotify, and of course we're here. But until next time, we'll see you until later. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.